This call may be monitored and recorded for quality assurance.
AB Supply, this is Richard.
Hi, Richard. Gosh, you sounded just like you do in the videos.
Oh, my goodness.
This is. I know. I've watched a bunch. I've watched you a lot. I am installing a Bommer 7811 600 hinge, twin hinge, and I'm going to use an 1/8" clearance versus a 1/4 on both sides of the door because you said I can. And I've rounded the side. Go ahead.
I'm sure that I said that. Are you leaving them square edged, or are you radiusing them?
I'm radius them. I was going to radius the 1 1/2 inch, but that router bit is about the size of a shoe, and it's bigger than I'm comfortable with using on a router. So I used a smaller router bit and got a very good rounded edge. Plus, I've sanded it to even round it a bit more. So
awesome.
I have a little flat spot, probably a 1/2 inch flat spot on the middle part. It's an 1 1/2 inch wide door. And I've rounded the non-hinge side a little bit. I haven't rounded it a ton. I've just taken off maybe a 1/4 inch of edge on each part of it. I'm hoping that's enough.
Definitely sounds like it's enough. I mean, ideally, I would have a dimensioned sketch, and if it needed to be put into AutoCAD, it could. But even if you left it square-edged, nominally it would work. Theoretically, it would work. But you sure don't want to count on it working. The door, when the humidity was higher, could swell enough to the point where it didn't work. But if you're radiusing it, you're gold.
Okay, this is my question. So I did the cutout at the bottom. I literally did the cutout at the bottom out of a piece of plywood before I did it on the door. But and that was after the paper diagram.
I'm about to say, marry me. I mean, this is perfect. Awesome, excellent.
The pivot at the top is what has me puzzled. So I know that currently you're supposed to put the pivot point at 1 1/2 inch off of the edge, the swinging edge. But does that change if you're only using an 1/8 inch clearance?
Well, the bottom line is it does not change because your point of reference is the jamb, not the edge of the door. And the only thing that matters is that when you drop a plumb bob down from the top of the pivot, which you won't, but if you were to, that needs to be the imaginary vertical axis of pivoting. That needs to be right down where that bottom horizontal spring assembly is going to rotate around. So you could plane off a 1/2 inch off the edge of the door, but that dimension to the vertical axis of pivoting is referenced off the jamb, not the edge of the door.
Okay, so the 1 1/2 midpoint of that top pivot piece is still 1 1/2 inches off to the edge of the door.
I don't think so. The fact of the matter is I'm going off of memory. Let me actually look at the template.
Okay.
Okay, so 1 1/2. That's an 1 1/2 radius.
Yeah,
okay, so forget 1 1/2. What it has to be is 1 3/4 from the jamb. What they're showing you here is, in the template, if you are mimicking what they did there, then sure, it's an 1 1/2 off the edge of the door, meaning the high side, the highest side of the door, not the relieved side. It would be from the center of the thickness where the door is widest.
Right.
So if you make any deviation to your door off of as vis-a-vis the template, you simply need to make your dimensional adjustments. So
okay. So I move it over an 1/8. I do move it over an 1/8. Yep.
What you want is 1 3/4. Well, You can
from the jam.
So when you look at the lower left-hand corner of the template, they call it out as 1 3/4 from the jam.
Right.
And when you put the center line of your pivot up in the header, you put it at the same dimension. On your door, you're going to take 1 3/4 minus the gap that's between the jam and the door, and that's where you put the door portion of the top pivot. So the short answer is yes, you do exactly what you said. You move it over 1/8 of an inch.
And I move it over 1/8 of an inch on the door frame, at the top of the door frame, and on the door itself.
Yeah, you've got to be at 1 5/8. No, only on the door. The header to the center of that, the jam to the center of the header prep is going to be 1 3/4.
Still?
Yeah, and then the jam to your reference point, which kind of doesn't really so much matter on the bottom of the door, but it has to be 1 3/4 to that position. But you are adjusting it if you're going to measure from the edge of the door. Yeah, your door all of a sudden now is. But what are you referencing off the edge of the door?
Off the edge of the door, I'm measuring to the middle piece of that pivot piece.
On the top of the door. Yeah.
That's
so
pivot symbol. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to be 1 5/8.
Right. I'll be 1 5/8.
Yeah, you're going to do exactly what you said. You don't. I guess I don't like the term "move it over 1/8." You're not moving it over 1/8. You're 1 3/4 from the jam, but since you took 1/8 off of the gap, you're going to add that 1/8 to the 1.5 inch door dimension. It's 1.75 reference from the jam, no matter what that gap is, whether it be a 1/2 inch or a 1/16, whatever it is, theoretically. But yeah, your top pivot is going to be 1 5/8 measured from the edge of the door, and it's not the face of the door. You've got to put your tape measure on the top rail of the door and go from where its belly is sticking out, so to speak.
It's the thickest. It's the widest.
That's right. Exactly. It's the center of the thickness of the door.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, awesome.
But it makes, now I understand that middle pivot point has to be 1 3/4 from the jam. You should use it off of the jam and not the door. Okay.
Absolutely. That 1 3/4 is the governing dimension on all of this.
Yeah, that would make sense. Thank you so very much. Thank you for all your time. You have been very helpful. And now I can stop watching your video and see if you actually saved this in the video. So thank you.
So you're welcome. So can I say one more thing that you may encounter when you install these?
Yeah.
Say possibly a callback. Okay. So you'll notice that your trim plates have 4 holes.
Yes.
You're not going to put screws in all 4 of those holes. If you lay that plate over the prep you're going to do in your door, you'll see, whoopsie, there's nothing for it to bite into. That's by design. Literally, Bommer did not want to have handed plates. So what I've done in the past is cut the head of that screw off and get some super glue. Get some crazy glue so it looks nice. And maybe put a note on the back side of your template. Hey, to future me, or me in the year 2070, don't try to loosen that screw. I glued it in so that it wasn't weird.
Which of the 4 screws is not going in?
Well, for sure, the one in the lower left-hand corner when you were looking at the template. You won't have any lumber there. And I actually don't believe you will have much for the, you shouldn't have any room for either of the lower 2 screws. You probably aren't going to hit wood on either of those. Yeah, you might. Let's see, 1 3/8 plus 5/16, so 1 and 11. 1 and 11, 9 and 3/1. So 1 and 11, so 8 and 11, 8 and 5/8 plus 9/16. Yeah. You should be able to get 3 screws in. I don't think you're going to get 4 screws in. I know you won't get 4 screws. You should get 3 in.
And this is where it screws to the floor?
No, the trim plates that go on the face of the door.
Oh.
The rectangular decorative plates that are in, did you say it was 600 finish, so it's prime coat?
Yeah, I got prime coat.
Yeah, awesome.
What faceplate? Because there's nothing to screw into.
Yeah, you've routed it off. You've routed that entire core of the door out.
Oh.
And it had Bomber made it so that, you would only have 3 screws. They would have lefts and rights at that point. They would have to put one of each. Oh, actually, no, that's way off. They would literally have to have left hand and right hand because the plates aren't symmetrical.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
That might save you a call back. But take your time. As far as I'm concerned, I would take the plates now, cut the screws, get that super glue, put it in there nice, let it set over a day or two just so that it's perfect, because it's a lot harder to glue that while it's on the door. Do that first.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Let me know how it turns out. I'd love to hear.
Okay. I can even send you a picture. I am making it out of one slab of wood. It came from an elm tree.
That was a pretty big elm tree.
It was a very large elm tree, and the mill that I got it from, actually when they cut the trees, they have the ability there with this very large saw to slice them, and then they stack them and let them sit covered outside for 2 to 3 years before they put them in the kiln. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm excited. The whole hope is that this will work perfectly, and that's my goal.
Well, if you get into equally cool stuff in the future, let me know. I'm literally sitting in front of my CNC right now, so I do, I tool path and make odd things, not odd things that don't exist. Ooh. So if you ever bump into something like, oh wait, this guy's got a 3-axis router, maybe he can make this part for me. Let me know.
Oh yes, thank you. That's quite an offer. Okay, awesome. All right. Thanks. It's good to talk with you.
Thank you very much for calling.
Thanks. Bye, Richard.
Bye-bye.
If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it.
Okay, let's take a look at what I was saying. And I don't look at this template every day, and with Bommer no longer producing these, I don't look at it to the point where I retain it. So what the client was concerned with, and she obviously has an exceptional mastery over the subject matter. So the client was saying, do I just move it 1.5 inches on the door? Because her dimension became 1/8 of an inch. So rather than 1/4 here, she has 1/8. I put that in AutoCAD lots of times, and it's bueno. So what I was saying, however, what's actually important on this is you observe the primary dimension, and that's 1.75 inches. The jamb to the vertical axis of pivoting, which is all the way. I don't move my mouse cursor, but when I scroll up and down, that's the vertical axis of pivoting. So that means from the jamb to the vertical axis of pivoting, it's 1.75 inches. If this becomes the relationship between this, x plus y must equal 1.75 inches. So when this becomes 1/8, you take that 1/8 and you add it here. Now, the only point that I wanted to make sure with the client that was understood, and it was, as you could tell, is that you're measuring from the width of the door. Now, the width of the door is, and I'll illustrate it, that's a door edge, that's a door edge, that's a door edge, that's a door edge. The door is measured from the center of the thickness. In this case, a rabbited door would be here. So square edge, beveled edge, rabbited edge, and radiused edge. The reason that's important is the beveled edge is good to study. If I measure from here and I go over, like if I'm installing a door viewer, let's say I go over 1 5/8. Well, I try that trick here, I'm going to be at a different dimension. One's going to be in the right place, the other's not, because that's the part that's important. So the client needs to measure from this position on the door, not from here or here, because you're going to be off. So that's what I was driving at when it came to explaining that to the customer, which she got perfectly, and I'm really glad she called. Any technical questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up. Please subscribe and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.